One thing about Rodgers I got to bring up is his throwaways are down almost 100 and it was 105, 106% because last year he was playing the McCarthy system. He basically had to play the offense on his shoulders. This year, he's barely even throwing it away because he doesn't have to because
Nope.
the dump routes are there. He's taking the smart choices, and if he does throw it away, it's every now and then. It's not like it's 5 or 6 a game like he had the other last year.
And everybody's ragging on his completion percentage, and I'm talking about Aaron Rodgers here over the last 4 games, 57%. But their play action attempts of 25 yards or more have tripled. So they are running the ball more, which is and here's the thing, they're running the ball, JB, even if they're continuing, even if it's getting 2 yards. And you saw it last
Right.
week. There was a point where I watched the Bears in Hicks celebrate after stopping Aaron Jones on back-to-back, like 1 yard and 2 yards, right? The third down, it was a 3rd down and 8, and that's when the big touchdown came off of play action. They were literally celebrating, and they got so overconfident that they were able to run play action on 3rd and 8. Now, JB, you're smart enough. You should not be able to run a successful play action on 3rd and 8.
No, not on 3rd and 8.
Right. And because they were doing that, I always said their problem was, and I got an article dropping tomorrow about how everybody doesn't think this team has an offensive identity. I think they've absolutely showed their offensive identity the last couple of weeks. The numbers may not be great, but they are showing what they want to do. And if these guys wouldn't drop the ball, Aaron they would have scored 35 points last week. MVS dropped the first one of the game that would have been a for sure touchdown off of play action.
Yep.
And Adams dropped 3 big plays that could have been, a couple of would have probably been potential scores had he made a guy miss, and another one would have set him up in the red zone had he caught it. So, this isn't all on Aaron Rodgers, really. Just like it's not all on Kirk Cousins all the time either. So.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think they are. They're two very similar teams on the offensive side of the ball. Very similar.
Which pass rushing unit do you think gets more sacks, the Vikings or Packers?
I'm actually going to say the Vikings. I think the Vikings will get more sacks, and I'm not going to say it's going to be it might be like 1. I think it'll be really close. It could be something like the Vikings get 3 or 4, Packers get 2 or 3.
I mean, with the Vikings and Packers, it always seems to come off of, like, which 1 or 2 turnovers is going to swing the game.
Yeah.
It always seems to like that. I mean, like Kirk's interception in week 2. I mean, the past couple years of the Packers, it's like someone either fumbles the ball at the worst time and like right at the beginning of the fourth quarter and then gives the Vikings another chance to get like 10 points back up on the board. So, I mean, yeah, it's always just those, and it's not a lot of turnovers. It's just 1 or 2.
No,
just
it is.
Couple.
Well, the Huntley game, what did he have? He had 2 or 3 picks in that game.
Yeah. No, Huntley's Huntley. That's a whole different.
You almost have to throw that game away in the matchup, really.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. So, with how Stefanski is scheming Kirk with this offense, basically for Kirk to have a lot of open options, would you like Stefanski to come back in year 2, or do you think he's going to move on?
I think he's going to get offers. I think he's proving.
It just matters if he takes them, basically.
Yeah, and again, don't forget, like I said a while ago, Zim blocked him from being approached. He wanted him around, but I think now he'd have to be open to it. I'd hate to see him leave, but I definitely would like to see him also get his chance. He's shown a lot this year with the way he's handled this offense. And he's another guy who's kind of emerged as the season went along. For the first 4 games, I think he was trying to figure out what he wanted to do, and then he did. And then after the Bears game, they just kind of figured it out. So I like the fact that he was able to adjust his schemes to figure out exactly what worked, because they weren't getting there. Yeah. DiFilippo was not adjusting at all. He was trying the same stuff week in and week out, wasn't working, and he wasn't changing. I like the fact that Stefanski. I think he works well with Zim. I would love to see him stay, but I could see him getting an offer. I could see him getting the Giants job, quite honestly.
Really? Do you think Stefanski would fit there, especially with Jones?
With Jones and Barkley and Slayton, the rookie, the wideout, he's got some nice young weapons out there that he could have some fun with.
I think Stefanski is going to be one of the hot targets, especially if they finish strong and even if they lose in the playoffs. I think as long as they, it's not like they crap the bed offensively and he looks terrible.
No.
He's going to be a top target. Now, here's the deal. Would you prefer going forward just for continuity and maybe a better chances going forward, since for something terrible like that to happen and him maybe not be able to be such a hot commodity? I know it sounds weird, but then he would be able to stick around. Like, let's just say you get to you win one playoff game and you get to another one and the offense just craps the bed, okay? And it kind of cools the waters on him, so then he's retained. But then going forward, that gives you a better chance you get deeper into the playoffs. Or would you prefer just to lose, or whatever, and he ends up going away and having to start over and maybe taking a chance that maybe the next guy doesn't have the rapport?
Well,
I mean, that's a tough that's a tough question as a fan, and as what would you prefer to happen long term?
The Vikings crapped the bed in the 2017 NFC title game, and it didn't seem to stop anybody from wanting Shermer. So I would rather see the Vikings stay hot, do as well as they can, and if he leaves, he leaves. I don't want to see them crap the bed just to keep this guy for another year. I'm not that kind of guy.
I had to ask.
No, I'm all about the now, because you want to know what? None of us are guaranteed tomorrow. So I want them to succeed for as long as they can. And if he leaves because of it, bless him. I hope he does well wherever he goes, as long as he leaves the division. But I want to see the Vikings do well while he's there.
Well, you know what? I've got to ask something that's been bugging me on my mind a little bit, but I got to see how you think on it, JB. So last year, I know it was a different coordinator, different offense for Kirk, but like the Vikings were kind of hot earlier in the year last year, and then they kind of like lost those last couple games, and then and basically fell out of the playoffs within that week 17 because they needed to win against Chicago, but ended up losing. I mean, are you having any fear of like deja vu from last year going to this year because of what happened last year?
I always do, but I've been rooting for this team for 45 years. So I've seen them manage to do the impossible and not in a good way. I watched them lose to a terrible Cardinals team and miss the playoffs. I
remember that game.
At the end of on the last play and miss the playoffs. I've seen them do things in the playoffs that I actually expected to happen and shouldn't have. I fully expected Blair Walsh to miss that field goal. I fully expected it. You can ask my kids. I said, he's going to miss this. But it's a short kick. No, trust me, he's going to miss this kick. And he did. So
so the expectations compared to like realism, like, hey, I'm used to it, this is what's going to happen, kind of settles in.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like if the Vikings lost their last two and the Rams won out and kept the Vikings from the playoffs, it wouldn't surprise me if it happened. In the very least, it would not be at all surprising. And it's nothing against the Vikings. It's just history shows the Vikings find ways to mess up.
Well, there was a quote earlier from Zimmer that I liked. It seems like him and Rodgers always take like little dabs, or not dabs, little jabs at each other. Yep. And like at the podium, and they ask like, well, how do you feel about Rodgers in this matchup? And he goes, I mean, Jesus, this division's too small for both of us. One of them's going to have to leave. I don't care which one happens. And I'm like, Jesus, it feels like I'm watching a Wild West shootout.
Here's one even better
with Zimmer and Rodgers.
During the Packers media conference call with Zimmer, right? He goes, he made it even bigger statement that he said, I think it's time for Aaron to retire. Aaron happens to be in the room, as it's reported, and fires back something like, why doesn't he take his own advice? He should retire. So there is an ultimate respect when these guys talk about each other. There is a clear respect for each one of what the other is capable of doing to the other one. It's very rare. You see this with Belichick and a few players, and you don't see it a lot. Really, you don't. It's kind of a rarity in this league to see a player and a coach talk and banter and talk so respectively and highly of each other. It's something I think that's undersold in this rivalry that these two ended up because, like I said before, Rodgers and Zim did this when he was a Bengals coordinator, and so it's kind of neat that he ended up in the division having to face him twice a year, and the teams are kind of – because let's be real. I don't mean to be mean, JB, but let's be real. If Kirk keeps doing this, they're going to re-sign him because it's clear that he's clearly now worth the money. As much as we want to pick on him, the $89 million guaranteed to bring him in and build a team around him and the things they've done is clearly it's working, okay? Had they won one of those last two games, they would have made the playoffs last year, and who knows what, right? They were in the playoffs the year before without a quarterback. It's clear this was the right decision for this franchise and what it needed.
Never doubted it. I never doubted it.
That being said,
I told you guys before they were 8-7-1 last year. They were 8-7-1 last year, and quite honestly, Kirk played well enough for that team to win 11 games.
Well, I've got one last question before the big ones.
But anyway, my point was, JB.
Oh,
this is clearly the class. This is clearly going to be the class. These two teams are going to be fighting for the top, with the Bears trying to figure out how to be the third wheel in this. You know, like the way these teams are set up, Zim's going to be there for a while. I think Stefanski is probably going to be there. I think he may be one of those coordinators that says, you know what, I would rather stick around here and build a little more success and get myself prepared than just to take off after the first, thing and then get over my skis. And you know what I mean? Because you only get a few shots at being a head coach. And the worse the first round goes, the harder that second shot can be to get, right? So just because you're the hot commodity doesn't always mean it's the right time to take off and go. And I think there's a lot more of these guys that are realizing that now, and that's why you're seeing it's harder and harder to pull these young first-year coordinators away. But that being said, I think it's clear these two teams are built to kind of battle it out for the top of the NFC North for the next at least 3 to 4 seasons.
I would think so too. Again, the Vikings.
We all know it's not the Lions.
I respectfully didn't mention them. Just I was being respectful by just I wasn't even hinting at mentioning it. Dave has a hate for the Lions in Stafford. Okay, so he just waiting.
You win 9 games in 2 years, and you keep the same management and coach. What? No.
I guess it's cheaper.
Ford is the queen of mediocrity. That's what I'm naming it as.
I guess it's just cheaper to buy pencils than pens. That's probably why they kept Matty Patricia around.
They don't have pencils. I don't even care if he has a pencil in his ear. It's stencils and etches. They have stone tablets, JB. That's how far behind they are in the football world.
They are. They really need to sell that team to
Ford Field has payphones still. That's how far behind. But you know what? I got to ask another biggie. Which streak is likelier to end on Monday night? Is it Kirk's 0-8 Monday Night Football, or is it the Packers 0-3?
The Packers 0-3.
Wow. Okay, one, it wasn't even a long answer.
Man.
He just came out Packers 0-3.
Can you elaborate
So you have no
on
faith
that
in-
more? Because I know there's
Yeah,
a thought
like,
process that goes behind this that you've been torturing yourself with. I'm interested. Come on,